So are you shooting with the laser every inch as it's coming out of the truck?
You're taking all the guesswork out, not for yourself. Guy shooting the laser, you're taking the guesswork out for the guy that's helping you, that maybe not that experienced.
Our stuff is set before we pour. Perfect. And once you got those really good, everything else on top of that it just came out perfect. Yeah.
Take all the thinking out. Everybody that's helping knows exactly what to do. Because it's the most stressful part is the concrete.
Okay, today's video is going to be all about concrete footings. We're going to talk about how we like to pour concrete footings, and then we're going to react to how other people pour concrete footings and just give our thoughts on that. But before we get into that, we just wanted to quickly go over once again, where you can pick up screed chairs. We're in many different stores. If you are in, well, anywhere there's a White Cap, you can get these. They're available in White Cap. If you're in California, you can get them in Squires Lumber. You can get them at Hard Hat Construction and Valley Construction. If you are in Oklahoma or Texas, you can get them at CMC. And if you are in Seattle, you can get them in Stowaway Construction Supply. And then if you're in Idaho, you can get them at Franklin Building Supply. So if you want to get screed chairs in your local store, have them get a hold of us, or go talk to a sales rep or somebody and request that you want these stocked there. Otherwise, you can buy them on Amazon and eBay, and you can also buy them from our website, screedchair.com. And if you use code REDLINE at checkout, you can save 10% off your order. So with that, I think the first thing that we're going to go over is we're going to address some comments in one of our videos talking about concrete footings. So this is a video of us using screed rails to pour footings. So what's like one of the reasons we like to pour with screed rails, or what's the benefit of pouring a footing with the concrete screed rail?
The screed rail gives you your top of the footing. So, okay, so we don't pour all of our footings with screed rails. So this, I don't know what this is for. I think it's for a shop. Anyway, or it could be a garage. It's for something that has a concrete floor. So anything with a concrete floor. In our area, our footings have to be down in the ground. I think it's 18 inches now. It used to be 15 inches to the bottom of the footing. And so what we do, and there's some areas where you get closer to the mountain where it's 24 inches. I think up in Sun Valley was 32 inches or 36 inches. So you'll pour your footings, and you have to have a stem wall. And so, like in this video, 15 inches to the bottom of the footing for frost, because our area freezes, and they say that the frost in our area doesn't get below 15 inches, which I've never seen it that thick. Maybe 12 inches the thickest I've ever seen it, but there's areas that do get a lot colder than that. So we're pouring, this is probably a shop or a garage where we're pouring a concrete floor, and so we're using the dirt as our form. Now if we're just doing a house with a crawl space, or a house with a crawl space, then we'll dig that whole center part out, and we'll actually have to form our footings, because we'll do an over dig, probably 2 foot over dig, sometimes 3 foot over dig from the outside walls of the house, and we would form our footings. So here, which takes a lot more time. So here, all we're doing is we've taken probably a 15-inch bucket. It might be a 2 foot bucket. It's hard to tell, but whatever width your footing is, a 16-inch, I think our bucket's 15-inch, then you would dig that out exactly. And so when we pour our footing, the dirt is the form. We don't have to form it. So what we'll do is we'll use the screed rails. We'll shoot our grade, and we'll see how we're using the screed rail to screed off of, so our concrete height is perfect. And we'll set a screed rails. If they're wider, if it's a narrow footing, this looks like probably a 15-inch footing, 16-inch footing. If it's a wider footing, say 2 foot or 3 foot, we could use 2 rails, and then you put one on each side, and then you do the same thing. You could use a 2x, or if you have the screed rail in there, now all you're trying to do is get your footing to grade, and that screed rail gives you. You can see how I'm pushing right on the top of the screed rail. And I just keep my float level. It gives us a perfectly flat footing, perfectly to grade. So if you start with a perfectly flat footing, then everything else, I mean, if it's flat and it's to grade, everything else above that comes out so much easier. You know, your stem walls, your framing, everything. So at least the way we like to do it is we like to get our footings as right on as possible, as perfect as possible, so everything above that just makes everything above that easier.
Well, and this first comment talks just about that. A perfect footing does make everything else easier afterwards. Another way too that we've mentioned before in videos, like you already said, the reason we're able to just throw one screed rail in here is because we're not forming it up. Obviously, if we're forming it up, we're just going to screed off of our forms. But you said that there's crews in our area that even if they are digging that out farther for a crawl space, they'll just set up 2 rails and then pour it at a very dry slump.
Yeah, there's only one contractor that I've ever seen do that, and they've been doing it longer than I've been in construction, so they've done it for so long, and they still do it, and they're really good. Their footings come out, they're really dry, they just pour it right on top, so it's no forms at all. They just use a rail on each side and screed right off the top of that rail, and then their footings come out great.
So here's one of the first comment threads that I kind of wanted to address is, and maybe it's just because they're not really understanding, but like this first comment says, I just don't get the extra effort. You use the laser for excavation, so just use it for your footing heights.
Well, that's exactly what we're doing. I mean, we go in there.
Well, you did. You used the laser to set all the heights of your screed chairs.
Yeah, that rail that we have in there, we set it off a laser. We use the laser to set our string line, and then we put that rail to the string line. So I mean, we use the laser, and I get what they're saying. You can go in and just shoot. They're calling cow patties or whatever. Shoot your little grades, and then you have to go from little shot to smooth it out. These rails literally take a few minutes. They don't take very long. You'll spend more time trying to shoot your grade and screed off that grade than you'll ever spend setting up screed rails. We do this before we pour. So our screed rails are set to grade before you pour. You cannot make any mistakes. The only mistakes you could make are if you read your laser wrong or something. But
and any guy can just follow the screed rail and not have to guess what the other guy said. You know, you're not really guessing. I mean, yeah, you can shoot the cow patties, but you got to be really good to make sure it's all even, whereas the screed rail is going to keep it all even. So any person can sit there and, you know, it takes the stress out of going, man, am I doing this right? You know, the guy that's helping you or whatever, helping you finish.
And we're right with the truck. I mean, we're literally, the truck is pouring it out, and we're right with them the whole way. We don't have to pour a bunch out and then shoot cow patties and then dig a bunch out because we poured it too high or whatever. Or, I mean, to set this rail is exactly that. It gives you something perfect to grade to go by. So, and the rail is all the way through it. It's not a cow patty every 10 feet or however this sets it perfect all the way, and we can stay right with the truck as we go. So see, they've already pulled we'll have somebody ahead shoveling, pulling mud, right here, dragging mud, and then somebody's pushing the mud with the rail. As soon as you remove the rail, we just float that all in and make it nice and smooth. And we're pouring right with the truck, and it doesn't take that many guys. 3 guys. I mean, You guys poured that. These guys poured a huge footing up in Twin, and I think there was only 3 of you.
Yeah.
So I mean, this really is such an easy way to do footings. Anything with the concrete floor, this is the only way I would do it. I mean, it's less backfill, it's less excavation, you have zero forms.
The other thing too, and we've talked about this a lot when it comes to screed chairs and why we like using them, is in concrete you're always pressed for time, right? You're always battling time, whereas we can go in, we can set our rails the day before, and then when the mud gets there, all we have to worry about is getting that mud poured out. We don't have to worry about, I mean, you can go through and check your levels if you want, but you've got the rails already set up perfectly and you can visually see it. So now all you got to do is just worry about getting your mud down and moving the rails, and you continue to pour. You don't have to worry about checking a cow patty. You know, I don't know how often they're checking it. If they're checking it like every 3 or 4 feet, I don't know what they're checking their levels off of. Whereas with this, I mean, our rails are set, you know, you got a 10-foot rail and we set our screed chairs every 3 feet. So obviously every 3 feet, that's where it's being checked with the screed chairs, but you're not battling time when you're using screed chairs and a rail.
No, everything's set up ahead of time. I mean, we never, have you ever worried about if our grade, if anything's to grade when we're pouring after we've set up our rails?
No, that's why you set them up. Is then you, like I said, you don't have guys worried about is this one right? Did this one get shot? Did this one get overlooked? Or is it level enough as, you know, between the two patties? How does it look? You're taking all that thinking out. Now maybe the guy shooting it's like a rock star, man. He gets it right every single time.
Did I charge my laser?
You know, there's other guys that are like maybe second guessing and they're not that great at it, and you know, the rail just gives them that security of like, this is exactly what it needs to be. You know, it takes all the thinking out, and all he can do is focus on just getting it to that exact level.
This one here, so I was commenting back with this guy saying that it's easy to screed off a bar. It gets it flat and there's no guesswork. And then this person says there's no guesswork with the laser either.
Okay, but you're doing it in real time. So we've already done our lasering work. We lasered everything before we started pouring our concrete. So now what you're doing is you're pouring your concrete, you're trying to get it to some kind of grade, some kind of level. You have nothing to go off of until you shoot it with the laser. So are you shooting with the laser every inch as it's coming out of the truck? You're not. So you have nothing to go off of except wherever you shoot the laser. We have a rail that goes through every inch of that mud that is set perfectly with a laser to grade.
Well, and it's like I said, you can shoot all that, but what about the guy that's helping you that's not very good? What if he doesn't get it that great? What if he doesn't get it that level between the two places you shot? And maybe it doesn't really matter because it's a footing, but you know, but I'm just saying you're taking all the guesswork out, not for yourself. The guy shooting the laser, you're taking the guesswork out for the guy that's helping you, that maybe not that experienced, that doesn't know exactly, you know, he hasn't done a bunch of this stuff, but he can just follow that rail. It's kind of like a crutch, you know. It's helping him out so he can get better at it, you know. Yeah. So that you're just trying to minimize the mistakes is all you're trying to do.
And literally the laser guy, whoever's the smart guy with the laser, doesn't even have to be there to pour.
Right.
Can go on to the next job. I mean, everything is set, and you can have anybody pour these footings. I don't understand why you think that going back or in real time, like our stuff is set before we pour, and in real time, you guys are setting your grade in real time, and you're hoping I don't have dips, you know, and you probably don't give a shit if you have dips or not, you know, but what we're trying to do is get our concrete the very best we can get without any kind of, we're not even setting ourselves up for being able to make mistakes. You know, if we made our mistakes, it's before we set our string line. You guys could be making mistakes in real time. You're just making it so much harder, and you're just opening the door for more mistakes. So yeah, you think that you're doing it great with the laser, because that's how we've always done it. What happened? How were you doing it before you had lasers? Were you out there with your freaking transits, shooting it, looking through the transit, saying, okay, go up an inch, go down an inch? You're not even making sense. So what you guys have done is you've made it as hard as you could humanly possibly make pouring concrete. That's what you're doing.
Well, and what if your laser breaks? What if
And then what?
the battery goes dead or anything of that happens? Well, now you're really SOL because now you got concrete there, and you're not going to be able to do it now. You know.
Well, and here's the last question too. This person says that's the problem off a rail. It teaches them nothing. Well, you could teach your guys to practice using a laser before mud's even there,
Well,
setting your screed chairs.
That's completely wrong. His comment's completely wrong because you still use the laser to set up all your rails. You've set everything up with your laser, so you have taught them. What you've done is you've taken it out of the day you pour is the day everybody's a little stressed. The mud's there, everything's moving. You only got so much time to get everything completely done. All we're doing is taking one step of that stress completely out. Man, the guy shows up, all I got to do is follow this rail. Perfect. This is going to be really easy, you know? And, but you're still teaching your guy how to set up all those rails. You're going to still have to shoot those screed chairs to set up your rails, set up the string line to get it all set up anyway. So that comment's completely wrong. You know, you're still using a laser to set it all up. We're just making it really easy on the day you pour. So Jack there that hasn't really poured very much, kind of stressed because the boss is bitching at him, yelling because the concrete's there. Well, this takes all eliminates a lot of stress for that guy because Jack now only has to just follow, you know, this rail, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and that's pretty much why we use the rails. I mean, we've gone over it just in this video, but what I want to do too is we're gonna see how other people are pouring footings and just kind of compare. So this is Mike Haddock. He's probably one of the bigger concrete guys on YouTube, but I wanted to go over how he does it as well. He does a lot of explanation, but here is, so I think he's using that thing you were just talking about.
Transit.
Yeah.
Well, this is how we would do it before we had lasers. We use transits, and it is slow. You have to have two guys. So somebody's looking through that transit, and there's a little X. Well, it's a up and down and a left and right, and that makes an X. It's not an X, I guess a T. And so you can see your numbers on that stick. You don't even have to use a number stick. You could just use a piece of anything, piece of wood, piece of metal, and you can just mark your height. This is my height. And then as they're checking it, somebody's looking through that transit and telling go up a quarter, down a quarter, and then you set your height. And so this guy's setting string line. Exact same thing.
So he's done where he's dug it out so he can get his forms in there.
Yeah. So this is So
this is if you're going to do a house or crawl space underneath. This is how we would do it.
Yeah. There's no. This is exactly how.
And then he's setting in his rebar mat holders here.
Okay, there's a lot of places that don't allow these in the footings. So you have to hang your rebar. And so what we'll do, if we have to hang our rebar, like in our area we could use these, but some of the bigger areas, a lot of the inspectors have come from like California, and so some of these areas they won't allow you to have anything going to the ground that's touching your rebar, because especially something like that can rust. So you have to hang your rebar. So see how they have their 2x4s across the top of the forms? We'll do something like that, and that keeps your forms together, the top of your forms from bowing. But we also will use wire to hang our rebar off
of those boards.
Off those boards.
Yeah.
So, and some places require us to have our uprights already in. And so we have to tie our uprights, and then what we'll do is we'll run another 2x up higher that is in the center or wherever the center of your wall is, and then we'll have to actually tie our uprights to that. Everything has to be in. You can't, like here, obviously here.
Do we have any old pictures of that Chipotle?
Who is this? Is this us? This isn't us.
No, this is Mike Haddock.
Oh, okay, so they this looks like the freaking Chipotle.
Yeah.
So they yeah. So when we did a Chipotle, all the concrete for a Chipotle one year, and all of everything that we had to be in there, and we actually poured.
Yeah, I'd have to see if we could find some pictures of that.
We
'cause-
poured it was like a massive catch basin that caught, it was for storm drain, but it was huge. It was probably 50 feet by 30 feet or something. It was massive, and it was probably, I think some of our walls were 8 foot tall, down to 6 foot tall. It was just a crazy, and it was all on rock. Like they dug it out, and we had to actually drill into the bedrock to get everything set. It was a pain in the ass, but everything had to be in, and on those walls, our uprights were on one side. It was, I think they were 6 inches apart, and on the other side they were 4 inches apart. So we had to do two rows or two levels. I guess they call them curtains. 2 curtains of rebar inside the stem wall, and it all had to be in the footing. We couldn't stab anything. It had to be in before we poured, and they actually the inspector came out and checked it. So something like this, we can do this here in our area. They aren't requiring it to be put in, everything to be put in before your footings, and they do like our rebar in the footings to be hung. They don't, or they'll let us pull it up, but they don't like us setting it on anything.
So even like rebar chairs.
Yeah, they don't like anything.
Not in the footing.
Not for the footings, because then you have an open space for water to be able to rust up into your rebar is what they claim. Whether it ever does that or not, who knows.
They normally let us just pull them up as we're pour, so.
And then we can stab our uprights.
And stab our uprights, but.
So the way he's pouring his footing, though, like we wouldn't do it any different, really.
No, it looks
like how it's formed up.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah,
they're screeding off of the forms, so they set their forms to grade. I think this is just him tearing it down.
Yeah, and that's another thing is, even when we started, my grandpa, he came from Arizona. Well, he actually grew up here, but he did most of his construction in Arizona, and he didn't care if the footings were that great. And he says the footings doesn't really matter, because then what we'd do is we would set up our forms for the stem walls, and then we would go through and shoot grade inside our forms, and then we'd chalk lines to that grade, and then we'd put in little finish nails that we'd actually, that's what we went off, these little finish nails. That was our grade to float our concrete height. And I always hated that, and then once I figured out, see, this is exactly, see how they're setting that up so they can tie their uprights.
This is Essential Craftsman. This is another big guy on YouTube.
This is how we...
Yeah, this is how they would make you...
Yeah, we would have to do that. Everything has to be in before you pour.
Yeah.
But, so once we started saying, okay, we need to get our footings perfectly level, perfectly flat, so when we set our stem wall forms, if we can screed off the top of our stem wall forms, because it's going to make our stem wall top perfect. It's perfectly to grade. So we started doing our footings perfect. And once you got those really good, everything else on top of that it just came out perfect. This is exactly how you do footings if you're...
They require it all up.
Yeah. And
already all in.
And if you're... It's going to make it a lot harder to... If you can't stab your uprights, it's going to make it a lot harder to not have forms. So... And you would have to do it this way.
I believe he does the same thing. I think he screeds off of his forms, which I feel like most people that we've seen anyway that pour footers and footings is they screed off of their forms. They set their forms to grade, and then they use that as their grade, their screed.
Yeah, I would do the same. We always set our forms to grade.
Yeah.
I don't understand the concept of why anybody would set their forms not to grade, and then use your laser to shoot your grade inside while you're pouring. That to me doesn't make sense. Set everything perfect so you're set up to win before mud even gets there.
And that's one thing that I don't know his name. I haven't watched enough of his videos, but in this one specifically, the Essential Craftsman guy talks about how he likes to make sure everything is set. He will check and double check everything the day before, so that when concrete shows up, that's all he has to focus on is just getting the mud
There
down.
you go. This less stress. You know, that's what you're trying to do, is take all the thinking out. Everybody that's helping knows exactly what to do, because it's the most stressful part is the concrete. You know.
Well, there was a lot of times though because I was usually the one that set most of the grade as we would go, and there's a lot of times I wasn't even there for the pours. I was on somewhere else to set grade, and other guys would come. Sometimes Todd was with the guys, one of my other brothers. So sometimes I wasn't even there for the pours. I would just move on to and I didn't even worry about it because I knew I set all the grade.
Yeah.
You know, so, and everybody else knew how to finish concrete. And so they'd come in just exactly what these guys are doing. This is exactly what we were doing.
Yeah. Looks really good too.
Yeah.
So this next one is
So you can't use, I'm not saying you can use screed rails for every footing pour. You can't. It's just every so often it works out, and you can use screed rails, and it comes out great. They give you perfect footings. So, but if you have to form it up, it's no reason to use. You're not using screed rails.
Yeah.
So this is just an example of when they're pouring their footers. They had a lot of blowout underneath.
It's because they pour too wet.
And some of that may not be necessarily blowout underneath. It could be stuff that just fell off the top. Like they poured it too high.
As they're screeding, yeah.
Yeah, and one of their biggest mistakes is before that mud hardened, they should have sent a guy back with a shovel and pulled it all away from those forms.
Yeah, make it easier to pull out.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Just, you know.
That's going to suck.
It's going to suck to have to pull those out. I mean, it can be done, but I'm just saying 5 minutes a guy could go back through, pull all that mud away. Done. Anyway, you'll learn on the next one.
Yeah.
Actually, the guy that has to strip that will learn on the next one.
Yeah. We've had some of those, and it pisses the guys off to have to strip it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you'll start to see those guys. The guy that had to strip that will be the first guy out there after you're done pouring with the shovel.
And pulling it all the way. Yeah,
away.
pulling it all the way.
You don't have to tell them anymore.
No.
So this is another crew that I found called House Plans, and they don't use forms either. When they're pouring it, they pour it similar to how we do.
Yeah, there's tons of people that do it this way. They don't use forms. So
It just saves you time.
it looks to me, I don't know if they're yeah, see, and look, they've figured out a way that they're not down there floating it. They're up there patting it, trying to get it perfect. So sometimes you can do it, sometimes you can't. But if you can do it, I don't see why you wouldn't want to set a screed rail ahead of time. You literally could set that whole house or your whole pour with the screed rail in what, like 15-20 minutes?
Yeah.
And then you don't have to worry about it again.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they've got the
hangers,
the rebar
the holders.
Yeah, and they're able to stab. So this right here would be a perfect example. This is exactly where we would use a screed rail.
Yeah.
See, my question too is like, what's their level they're going off of? Are they just checking it with the laser? Like they use that wood thing to kind of pat it down, but
they could be. And I know a lot of people, a lot of old timers don't care about the footings. They've always said, the footings aren't that big of a deal.
Yeah.
They're just like, we're gonna get it in our stem wall.
And they could be just shooting it as they go, you know.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows how they're doing it? But I think that if you could if people started doing this with a screed rail, if you're gonna do footings just like this, and people started doing it with a screed rail, they'd never go back because it's so easy. You cannot, once the rails are up, when you're screeding, you cannot make a mistake. You can't make a mistake. And then once your footings are perfectly flat, man, your stem walls are so much easier to put up. Now, if you're pouring storage sheds, I see this, like with storage sheds, we would pour monolithic, and so we'd go through, we'd dig out the footing for the storage shed, and then we would put our rebar in, and it didn't matter. We would just pour, you know, to whatever it was, because then we would come back and set forms for our floor, and would pour our floor right on top of those footings. So we weren't doing stem walls. It wasn't a true monolithic pour, which we've done before. Those seem to be a pain in the ass. So what we were starting to do is these footings first, and then we'd come back, put our forms up for the flat, and you'd just be pouring. Whatever your gravel grade was the top of your footing, so you're pretty much just pouring right on top of that.
Okay, this next one comes from KG Shea Masonry. So I think this one, they use forms and set them up, but I don't know if they would have had to have. Like if they would have thrown a rail in there, because they're gonna have to pull these forms out of the mud where it's in there so tight.
Look how close it is to the sides, to the wall. Yeah. So if you're doing in soft soil though, your sandy soil, it's hard to use that as your form because it just sloughs off, you know. And
the side walls.
Yeah, and so they this may be
the only way.
Sandy soil, and they had to set forms because it just keeps sloughing off.
Yeah, we've done that before.
Yeah. We try to pour our footings drier. We try to do them at a 4.
Yeah.
So, and if you're doing any kind of commercial where they're testing it, you have to pour it at a 4 or less.
Yeah.
So to pour something like that is never going to happen. And that's probably one good reason. If you have to pour it drier, you may have to have a pump to be able to get, and it's not going to be a little line pump like that. You're going to have to use a boom pump, something with like a 4-inch hose that's going to pump your drier concrete.
Okay, this is also from the same guys. I think the reason I put this one on there is they use forms, but I think they still shot it with a laser.
Well, one good thing that doesn't make sense, but one good thing about if you by pouring it drier, so you see on this they've got, well, some of the areas, this is what our forms look like. We don't go all the way to the ground, so we'll use a 4-inch form. If we're doing an 8-inch footing, we'll use a 4-inch form, and then we have 4 inches underneath. And so one of the reasons I like to pour drier, a lot of times when we pour our footings, it's probably at a 2.
Yeah.
You know, maybe a 2.5, and the mud doesn't slough out underneath. It stays in the form pretty good, and we don't have to form all the way to the ground. We don't have to use the 8-inch or 10-inch form all the way to the ground. We can do the 4-inch, but and then there's other times we would use the 4-inch form, and then we'd actually dig out below the inside of the form by hand to get us down to that 4-inch level. If it was a softer soil, a lot of times in the basements we would be doing that. So
yeah, see, I still just don't understand the using a laser after you've set the forms, and I mean, they didn't show a lot of it, so maybe they didn't. Maybe they did just screed off of the forms, and maybe they're just showing at the end using a laser to check their level or whatever. But
yeah, I'm against I just feel like when the mud's there, everything should be set, everything should be to grade. What if something happens to you? You're the laser guy, and you're the only one on your crew that knows how to run the laser, and you know, to me, I just think that you need to make this dummy proof, so anybody at any level can come in and do it. You know, can come in and pour your mud.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
it's like Todd said too. What if your freaking laser dies or breaks or?
Yeah, I think honestly, setting of the forms is more important than pouring the mud. So
Yeah.
see, now they're stabbing their uprights. They're stabbing straight in. We haven't been able to do that in
Yeah, they make
25 years.
make you have that
We have to have a hook on them.
hook on them.
Okay, this is the last video on footings, but this is the only video I found Not that I dug very deep, but these guys actually use, when they're pouring their footings, they use a screed board and turn it sideways. So it looks like these guys have welded their, what do they call those, J-bars?
Yeah, you can't do that here. Most places you're not going to be able to do that. You can't have a rebar going into the dirt holding your not your structural steel. They just don't allow it. Anything that's engineered, dude, those engineers will never allow that. Now, if they were using fiberglass rebar, you probably could get away with doing it. I mean, you obviously can't weld it, but you could get away with pounding a fiberglass rebar down because it's not going to rust. But they don't allow you to have anything touching your structural steel that's going into the ground like that.
What I've noticed too, and in our area, we don't really have a lot of pumps. Like, I don't even, maybe there's some jobs we use the pump on, but all of our concrete trucks aren't backloaders. They have the front dump, which makes it nicer. But if you have a pump, I think that's the best way to do this.
Well, if your lot is wide open, you can get a truck around the whole thing, then we won't use a pump. But if it's like most of the pours, when we poured some of the commercial stuff, there's just not any room. You have no choice but to do a pump. So this looks like, to me, they've shot grade somewhere, and now they're just, I don't even know if they've shot grade. They're just tamping it in.
Right.
So.
See, and that's my questions. I just don't know what the levels they're going off of. And maybe there is crews out there that take that board and they go horizontally with it, screeding. But what happens if you had too much mud? You know, you screed down, now you got to scoop that mud out and then drag it down. Whereas how we pour it with screed rails, we're constantly, like you already said, moving with the truck. So you're always pulling that excess mud to the spots that still need mud.
Yeah, this to me looks like how we do storage shed. So we would just do the footing. The footing height doesn't really matter. Just get it up close to your where your gravel level is going to be for the floor, and then we'll set a. So I don't know what they're pouring here, but they may come back and the footing height doesn't really matter because they're going to set a form on the outside of that.
Just pour
their floor right over the top. So
Yeah.
So this may be something where the height doesn't really matter. But if you're going to set a stem wall on top of that, you want that to be at your perfect height. Yeah, honestly, I don't really know. I haven't seen him shoot any grades with a laser. I don't know what the long board was for. Maybe to try to take out any humps.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess when it comes down to it too, and we've already said this many times, like there's obviously lots of different ways to pour concrete. We are mostly focusing on screeding because that seems to be what everybody in the industry thinks is the hardest. And we've tried to make it the easiest, where screeding is, you don't really have to think about it. Anybody can do it. It's fast, and ultimately it gets your concrete really flat with no guesswork.
Okay, well, another issue though, and maybe these guys don't have it, I don't know how they don't, is finding people to do the work. And so if we bring in guys, like our best guys that we've trained, they go on their own. They start their own businesses. You know, a lot of them do. A lot of them have. And so you lose your best guys, and you're bringing in new guys. Some of them are high school kids. Some are just, you know, the flunkies that have nowhere else to go. Honestly, that makes up the industry, and they don't care. They don't want to learn. They don't care. You know, we've had guys on drugs. You take what you can get, and we're trying to take the guesswork out. So you don't have to have the most skilled guys out there every single day on every single job to get it to come out right and make it usable. I'm not saying you have to pour everything perfect. You don't have to have the perfect crews. But
well, your guys don't have to do a lot of the thinking. If you can take a lot of the thinking out of it, you know, it just becomes more of a habit. And they get good at what they're doing, you know. But if they got to do a lot of thinking, they may not. Who knows if they can do it, you know? If they stay long enough, you know.
Yeah, well, it's probably my personality, but I wouldn't let a lot of people do the thinking because the mistakes cost you money, and so a lot of times I'd rather be the one. I'm not saying I didn't make mistakes. But if I made the mistakes, I'm the one paying for it. You know, so I want to be the one that makes the mistake. And so it was hard for me to let anybody else shoot our grades or set our lines, or, you know, because I just wanted to make sure everything was right. You know, we did a job in Elko where we set our sidewalk. So we poured the curb and gutter for this development. We set our sidewalk string at right at 2%, and some areas were a little bit above 2%, which now I never set anything at 2%. 2% was the max slope on a sidewalk, and so we set everything at 2%, and anything that was above 2%, they made us tear out and replace. The inspector came out with a smart level, and he checked every single square. They were 5 foot by 5 foot squares, and he checked every square, and if it was out more than 2%, he marked it, and we had to tear it out and replace it. And so everything we set now is less than 2%, usually 1%, because that's acceptable. And so we'd start setting everything at 1%, but once you get burned because somebody else set your lines, you don't allow that anymore, you know, especially when it costs you many thousands of dollars in replacing concrete. So usually some of the smartest guys, the head guys, would set string lines or set our grades, and then the other guys, a lot of times anybody that we had could go out and pour. So, and we didn't worry about it.
No.
You know, once everything was to grade, you didn't worry about the pour. You're not out there with a laser in real time trying to make sure. And what happens what are you doing if it's sloped? You know, you got to get your laser perfectly sloped so you can shoot your grade on. What if your pad's sloped and you're out there trying to shoot your slope grade in real time while the mud's there and it's already on the ground?
Well, then that's another benefit with screed chairs, is you can set them at a slope before the mud gets there.
Yeah, you're right. You can set your rails at any height, anything. All you're doing, you're still using a laser to shoot everything. You know, we still set our grades with a laser, our string lines with a laser. We just set up a rail that we can screed off of. So to me, you're making this dummy proof. You're making it easy so you don't have to worry about the pour now. And, you know, back when we first started, my grandpa, every time we poured concrete, he just, like a switch flipped, and he was a psycho. He was screaming at the drivers. He's screaming at us. We didn't know, you know, and it's just, and there's a lot of old time concrete guys that still do the same. They just, concrete is just
stressful.
Yeah, it's super stressful when it doesn't need to be. We've never, you know, since we've been doing it on our own, we never have stress. I mean, every once in a while you have issues, but our pour days are usually, you know, we'll get donuts for the guys. We get everything poured out really quick. Everybody gets to take a little bit of a break while we're waiting for mud to dry. We're not out there, you know, our pours are easy. Like, to me, it was more stressful setting stuff up than it ever was pouring.
Everybody would always complain about form days, but the pour days were always the easiest. It was setting up the forms, and
yeah, everybody loved the pour days. So, which was pretty much every day.
Yeah.
When we did a lot of curb and gutter, that honestly, with the machine, that was stressful. At least for me. I don't think it was stressful so much for the guys, but it was stressful for me, and the main reason was for the trucks. If your trucks came bad, either too wet, too dry, it
couldn't even pour.
It was a nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember sometimes the trucks would show up and we'd have a trailer full of forms. In case a spot was too wet and it was slumping out, you'd have to really quickly form up a spot.
Yeah, that's curb and gutter work.
So this is the last video I want to show. This is a funny one. This is a relatable one. This guy's name's You Betcha, and he does a lot of like construction skit videos that are pretty relatable. So this one's titled "If Construction Had Tryouts."
Thanks for coming to the construction crew tryouts. First thing, take this. sorry, it's not gonna work out. Can someone else give it a try? Welcome to the team. Next test, what's wrong with these boots?
Well, they're way too clean. You have your mommy shine your shoes?
Welcome to the team. Okay, can someone strap this down for me? That's it. God, I had so much hope for this guy. Thanks for trying out. Anyone else want to finish the job?
That's not going anywhere.
Welcome to the team. What's the difference between these two photos?
They're the same photo.
Get him a shirt. Welcome to the team. All right, rapid fire. Let's go. Sig's inside. Welcome to the team. Never too early to start. Welcome to the team. You, sir, have the ideal body type. Welcome to the team. Looks like we just got one spot left. Can anyone show me what 6 inches looks like? Wow. Well, this guy. Good for you. Welcome to the team.
I thought that was funny and pretty relatable. I mean, it just, because it's like the construction industry, everybody always looks down upon. You're not always getting the, you know, the cream of the crop. But that's kind of why our philosophy is try to make specifically concrete as easy as possible so anybody can do it. Try to set everybody up for success, because you really don't get the best guys working for you.
No, we're considered the bottom of the barrel. So, like I said, a lot of the employees you get are druggies and lazy, and sometimes they're fat. And you got to take what you can get. And any good guys you get, doesn't matter how much you pay them, how good you treat them. Most of them, the top guys, most of them are going to go on their own. So.
And why wouldn't they? I mean, they've already learned all the skills. They can go make more money.
Why wouldn't they? They're really ambitious. You're not going to keep those guys. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much it for this video. If you guys have any questions, let us know in the comments. If you have any other videos or things you want us to react to, people send us stuff every single day that they want us to react to on the show. We have a lot of Australians sending us Australian concrete videos. They, for some reason, want us to pick who we think the best Australian concreter is.
Well,
so that could be one we do.
Bring it on.
Well, one thing though is the different weather. I mean, weather in Australia is different than here, so yeah, people have different ways of pouring concrete in different areas. So we're not saying our way is the best. For us, it's by far, and we've done it lots of different ways, and by far to us it's the easiest, and the guys like it the best. We've tried to make everything as easy as possible, and I've seen people make comments, well, concrete's supposed to be hard.
The other thing is too is it ain't like we're one in a million. We sell tens of thousands of these things, so we're not the only ones using them, and we sell to a lot of really big companies that are buying these things. So it's a proven, the screed chair has been proven, and there's tens of thousands of people using them every single day.
And we've had lots of guys. I mean, we have crews, not our crews, but people that buy. They're building subways, they're building bridges, they're doing airports, they're doing dams. They're doing from commercial jobs all the way down to pouring backyard patios with screed chairs. And we've had several guys reach out that have said, once I tried this product, I can never go back. I can't even fathom that I was doing it the way I was, just because it's so much easier. Like, that's the whole idea of trying to be innovative, especially in the construction industry. You know, you go from hand mixing cement to we've leveled up to where it's mixed in a truck and it gets poured out that way. You don't have to wheelbarrow it now. You got concrete pumps. You're not walking to work. You have a truck. So there's always, I mean, it's like they'll go out and they'll kick screed, but then they'll use a power trowel to finish it. So what we're saying is try to find the easiest way to pour the concrete out with screed chairs, a combination of screed chairs and power screeds. You know, you got roller screeds or vibe screeds, or, you know, goes all the way up to laser screeds, or even those giant slip form pavers that do everything all in one. Obviously, a lot of that varies in price, but it's still the same idea of just trying to make the concrete industry as easy as possible for everybody. Because you're right, nobody's signing up to do construction anymore. It's just a dying trade, sadly.
Well, in our area, one of the biggest contractors in our area, he could not find young guys to come in and work. So he kept complaining, you know, my crews are getting older, they're aging, you know, and he says I have to find. And this is a guy that used roller screeds. He's been using roller screeds for at least 30, maybe 40 years. Whatever. Since they first come out, this guy started using roller screeds with his crews, and now he was saying, you know, my crews are just getting too old. I need to make it easier. And this guy would pour all the big stuff. He poured all of the schools, all the commercial buildings, all of the industrial stuff. He was the biggest concrete guy. He's poured everything, you know, any kind of plants that came in, he was the guy that was pouring it all. And he finally, I think it was maybe 10 years ago, he bought a laser screed, his first laser screed, in order to make it easier on his guys. And his guys were using roller screeds, you know, and we're saying, well, roller screeds are easy, you know, the easy way. And he just said, well, my crews are getting too old that I need to even make it easier. And so he ended up, but he went all those years, he'd pour massive parking lots out of concrete. He went all those years using roller screeds, and that's how he poured. And then he finally broke down and bought a laser screed, and which he still uses roller screeds, but the laser screed, he said, we needed to make it easier for the guys, as easy as possible. So there's always an easier way than what we're saying, but there's always the cost that comes with that. And I think if you're a company that pours a lot of concrete, and you're doing it by hand, you're crazy. There's better ways, quicker ways. There's no reason anybody. I understand if you're a small concrete guy and you don't pour a lot, hand screed, that's fine. But if you're if you're pouring big slabs, you're pouring big commercial stuff, industrial stuff, there's no reason you should be out there shooting cow patties and hand screeding any of that.
Well, that's pretty much it for this video. I once again want to quickly tell you where you can pick up screed chairs. You can get them in Whitecaps across the country. You can get them if you're in California, they're in Squires Lumber, Hard Hat, Valley Construction. If you're in Oklahoma or Texas, they're in CMC Supply. If you're in Idaho, they're in Franklin Building Supply. And if you are in Seattle, they are in Stoneman Construction Supply. As well as you can pick them up on eBay, Amazon, or our website. If you go to screedchair.com and use code REDLINE at checkout, you'll save 10%. But that's pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions or comments, leave them down below. Send us videos. You can tag us online if you are using screed chairs, or if you have videos or pictures of how you're pouring concrete, send them to us. We're always trying to learn too and find more innovative ways to do things. So, but that's it. We'll see you guys in the next one.